It was March 4th, 1980, when a passerby stumbled upon something unimaginable near a serene beach in Los Angeles. There, lying lifeless beneath the pale morning light, was the body of a young woman. She had been brutally assaulted, stripped of her clothes, and left with a devastating head wound. Her name, Teresa Broder. Just 20 years old, full of dreams, and carrying a new life within hers, was pregnant. The scene was haunting. Her body bore the marks of violence, bruises scattered across her skin, her hair matted with blood, and her eyes forever closed to the world. Near her, investigators found a bag containing her ID. They also discovered 2 cups and an empty bottle nearby. These small clues hinted at a sinister evening. Someone had been with her. Someone had shared those drinks. And then, something terrible happened. Teresa's body was found approximately 19 meters away from the house where she lived. She wasn't far from home, yet she had been abandoned like trash on the cold, unforgiving sand. At first glance, everything pointed to murder. Clearly, she did not take her own life, especially after confirming through forensic examination that she had been sexually assaulted. Thus, what the police were dealing with was a homicide, not a natural accident. For instance, it wasn't as if Teresa had gone to the beach, sat down, and suddenly died under mysterious circumstances. No, this was deliberate. This was cruel. But who could have done such a thing? And why? Now, as any good detective story goes, the first person they turned to was Teresa's husband, Ronnie. He seemed like the perfect suspect. After all, he was the last person seen arguing with her before she vanished. On the night of March 3rd, Ronnie and Teresa had gone out to visit a friend, but things didn't go smoothly. Teresa wanted to leave early, while Ronnie insisted on staying longer. Their disagreement escalated, and eventually, Ronnie dropped her off at home, stormed off back to his friend's place. That was the last time anyone saw Teresa alive, or so we thought. Ronnie's account painted him as frustrated but innocent. According to him, he returned to his friend's house after dropping Teresa off and stayed there for the rest of the evening. His friend corroborated his story, claiming Ronnie never left. Neighbors even confirmed seeing him leave the area and head toward his friend's house. Yet, despite these alibis, suspicion lingered. After all, Ronnie was the husband, a role that often casts a long shadow in cases like this. To make matters worse, Ronnie became the target of public outrage. People whispered behind his back, pointing fingers and labeling him as the killer. Even Linda, Teresa's 4-year-old daughter, grew up believing Ronnie was responsible for her mother's death. The weight of suspicion crushed him, yet no proof tied him to the crime. Without concrete evidence, Ronnie remained a free man but not a free spirit. The accusations haunted him for decades. Teresa's sister confirmed that she showed up at her house later that night, visibly upset about the fight with Ronnie. But after calming down, Teresa decided to return home. Or did she? Some whispered that she might have gone to the beach instead of. It's a place she'd been eager to visit, but couldn't convince anyone to join her. Alone under the moonlight, perhaps she met someone dangerous, someone who took advantage of her solitude. But without evidence or witnesses, the case grew cold. For over 3 decades, it remained unsolved. People pointed fingers at Ronnie, convinced he was guilty. Even Teresa's own daughter, Linda, believed her stepfather was responsible. The weight of suspicion crushed him, yet no proof tied him to the crime. Fast forward to 2013. Enter Detective Ralph, determined to breathe new life into this long-forgotten case. Using modern DNA technology, he reopened the investigation. This is where the story takes a shocking turn. One day, Ronnie received a visit from an old acquaintance, a woman who claimed to hold a dark secret. She revealed that in 1981, just months after Teresa's death, she herself had been abducted by 2 men. During her harrowing ordeal, she overheard them discussing how to dispose of a body. One chilling phrase stuck with her: "We'll do what we did with Teresa." Her account led investigators straight to Robert Jazz, a man Ronnie vaguely knew. As it turned out, Robert had a history of assaulting women, though charges against him were dropped due to lack of cooperation from victims. But now, with DNA evidence linking him to Teresa's body, there was no escaping the truth. In 2017, nearly 4 decades after Teresa's tragic death, Robert Jazz stood trial. Faced with overwhelming evidence, his lawyer advised him to plead guilty to involuntary manslaughter. At 67 years old, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, eligible for parole after 15 years. Though justice came late, it finally arrived. For Linda, Teresa's daughter, the revelation brought both relief and sorrow. All those years, she had blamed Ronnie for her mother's death, but learning the truth allowed her to reconcile with him. Together, they began healing wounds that had festered for far too long. And so, dear listeners, but not without reminding us of the resilience of justice and the power of perseverance. What are your thoughts on this story? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and keep seeking the truth.